L'chaim, my friends. Today we are learning. Join us as we learn the 5th chapter in the Laws of Studying Torah. Over here, the Rambam is going to be discussing the special laws of how a person is to properly give respect to their teachers, to all their teachers in general, to every person whoever taught them anything in their life. It's a very important thing, and we must always give them respect. But most importantly, in regards to a teacher who has taught you and has taught you everything that you know and is your teacher. Every person has the person that they have studied by and they hold them in the highest esteem. And we're not just talking about your math teacher, or your regular teacher in school, or something like that, but rather someone, especially on a Jewish level, on a Torah level, when we're talking about someone who has taught us Torah, we're talking about a rabbi who is one who is dedicated to helping this person grow and become who they are. And we're talking about a very, very great rabbi, someone who is a personal mentor, someone who is really helping us grow and become who we are. So over here, the Rambam in the beginning of the chapter is going to be talking about this great, very important figure in our life of a teacher, and then later on he's going to be talking about just a regular teacher or anyone who has taught us anything in our life. Most specifically, when we're talking about the study of Torah, as part of the laws of studying Torah, the Rambam is discussing how we must honor Torah scholars, but specifically Torah scholars who have helped us become who we are. So just as a person is commanded to honor their parents, so too also a person, just as they're supposed to have fear and awe of their father, so too they should also hold their teacher in awe. And the truth is that it's actually supposed to be greater. The fear that we have of our teacher is supposed to be greater than the fear that we have of our father. Because our father is someone, or our parents are they brought us into this world, into the physical world. But our teacher, they bring us to the world to come. They help us to study Torah and connect to God on a beyond the world level. And therefore, if for instance, a person's father, maybe their mother, has lost an object, and also their highly esteemed teacher has also lost an object, so then there is actually a preference, so to speak. There is a precedence that you have to help your teacher find their object before you help your father. And that's because of the specialty of esteem in which we put our teachers, those who bring us to the world to come, those who bring us to the place of becoming who we are and being able to connect to God on such a deep and amazing level through the study of Torah. But in a case where a person's father was a Torah scholar himself, so then, because he's also a Torah scholar and he also taught him, so therefore he has to help his father first. But in general, we find that the honor that a person has to give to their teacher is of the greatest and the highest, and there is no greater honor than a person has to give to their teacher. And as our sages say, that the fear of your teacher should be equivalent to your fear of heaven. Therefore, someone who disputes and argues on the authority of their teacher is considered as if they have revolted against God himself. As it says in regards to Korach, who was arguing on Moses, it says that he has led a revolt against God, when in essence it was against Moses. But this was considered as if it was against God himself, because Moses was their leader, he was their teacher at that time, and he argued on him and he disputed against Moses. And so therefore, it's a very terrible thing. And when any negative thought or any negative action that we might do against our teacher is as if we did it against God himself. So what does it mean that a person would dispute their authority of their teacher? So the Rambam says that this is defined by someone who goes and he opens up another house of study in the same place as his teacher. Or even if it's not in the same place, but as long as his teacher is alive and he didn't ask his permission, even though his teacher might be across the world, still he must ask permission from his teacher, and only then would it be permissible for him to open up another house of study. Now, let's say a person comes and asks a question. In Jewish law, a person comes and asks you a question. What am I supposed to do in this case? So, if he was far away from his teacher, the Rambam says at least 12 mil, which is like a mile, 12 miles away, so he's in another place, so then that would be allowed. But if it's in front of his rabbi, so then he's never allowed to answer and give the clear-cut law of what you're supposed to do if you're next to your teacher. The rabbi should be the one who is going to be giving the law. But if it's someone who is doing something wrong, so then, and you should tell them off and tell them, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. So then you're allowed to do that even in front of their teacher. But he's not allowed to set himself up as a house of study or a place where he's going to be teaching people laws and telling them what to do. That's not allowed. Only if he got permission from his teacher or if his teacher has passed away. But in general, now the Rambam starts talking about the fact that if a person is opening up a house of a place where he's rendering halachic judgments, so he can only do this if he is someone who is worthy of doing that, if he knows his stuff, if he actually knows the laws and he knows what's going on. But if someone who doesn't, and he's not worthy of it, and he doesn't really know his studies so well enough to be able to really give, and he knows all the halachas properly, be able to give a proper halachic Jewish law ruling, and he does so, and he opens up his house of teaching, and he comes and starts giving judgment on what to do, this person is a fool, and he is wicked and arrogant. And it's a very, very terrible thing, and it's a big stumbling block for people who are not aware that this person is not real, and he's not in truth someone who has the authority to be able to give Jewish law. And this is a terrible, terrible thing, and it's in the end it's going to bring lots of hate, havoc, and will destroy the vineyard of God, it says. And they will extinguish the light of the Torah. It's a very, very terrible thing. So, moving back to the idea of the honor that a person is supposed to give to their teacher. And I want to make clear that when we're talking about over here your teacher, it's not talking about a regular teacher that even if you went to yeshiva and you've studied Torah from someone for a year or two, that's not the type of teacher we're talking about. That's a teacher, that's someone who's teaching you Torah on a basic level. We're talking about someone who is your teacher of such high esteem. This is someone who has brought you to the greatness of God, who has made it. There is a term, a rebbe. A rebbe is someone who is a leader. He's someone who leads his people. That's the type of person we're talking about. It's not just talking about a regular person, or maybe like a Rosh Yeshiva, someone who is the head of the academy, and this is someone who is. We're talking about of great esteem. It's not just a regular type of teacher, and this is something which we have to be able to differentiate and understand the difference. So much so that, as we see, that it says that you're not allowed to call your teacher by their name, even if you're not talking to them. You're just talking to someone else. You should never call them and mention them by their name, but rather you should say my teacher or so on. And especially if it was if this name is a name which is not regular name, it's not a name that everyone uses or that everyone has. So then you should really never mention that name, but rather say my teacher. And so to also the honor that a person has to always give to his teacher is whether throughout his lifetime he should always wish him well, and he should bow in awe a little bit to him when he tells him hello or peace upon you. And if your rabbi greets you, so then you should greet him back, peace upon you, my teacher and master. So a person should not take off his tefillin in front of his teacher. In other words, he's not dealing with his own personal, with his needs, with the things that he's busy doing in front of his teacher. He should be focused on the fact that his teacher is there. He should be as if he's in front of a king. And when he's praying, so he shouldn't be praying, right near his teacher, not in front of him, not beside him, not behind him, but rather he should go to, further back on the side and then pray over there. He should not go into the bathhouse with his teacher. He shouldn't sit in his seat. He should never argue with him, and he shouldn't sit down in front of him until his teacher tells him that he's able to sit. And all these various laws, which are, when he's going away from his teacher, he should walk a little bit backwards, facing him, rather than turning your back to him. And if you see your teacher coming from far away and he's walking towards you, you should always stand up and to be able to greet him. And when he leaves, to always watch as he leaves all the way. And in the time of the holidays, to go visit him. So we're talking about a very great level of honor when it comes to such an esteemed figure in the Jewish community, in a person's life. So I would really say we find this in regards to a chassid, a disciple of the Rebbe. The Rebbe in general, or throughout history, we've had leaders of the Jewish people, which the honor that was given to a Rebbe was of the greatest esteem. And this is something which always I'm, as a disciple, as a chassid of the Rebbe, of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So this is something which always there is such honor and esteem given to a Rebbe, someone who is really bringing you to your potential of being able to bring you to the world to come, to teach us Torah, to show us what is the way to live a life as a Jew. So this is definitely something which, as a chassid, which I relate to very much, and it's a very fundamental idea. So, continuing on in regards to the laws of how a person should give honor to their teacher. So, we should never give a student honor in front of a teacher, because the teacher is of great, the teacher is there, so you don't give honor to the student in front of him, unless the teacher himself is someone who gives honor to that student. So a person should always serve his teacher with the greatest help, to always, as if like a servant before their master. So whatever the teacher needs to be done. So he should always help him. And if he sees his teacher is doing something wrong, so then he should always, if he sees that his teacher is doing something wrong, so then he should tell his teacher, you have taught us so and so. Not by reprimanding him, but just to mention the law that the teacher himself has taught us, but never by arguing and telling him off, so to speak. And if when his teacher passes away, so a person will mourn after him, just as he mourns after his parents, where he rips his clothes all the way till he reveals his heart, and then he never sews it back up. And it's he really should mourn all the way. And now, in general, now the Rambam is going on to talk about. So he says that in general, anyone who is a person, a sage, a person of study, you always should give them honor, and you should never talk in front of someone who is greater than you, who is wiser than you. And now, if a teacher does want to give, he wants to let a student, and he forgoes these honors that a teacher is supposed to get, so then he's able to do that, although the student should still give him the honor, even though the teacher forgoes it. Now, the same way the student is supposed to give honor to the teacher, so too also the teacher is supposed to give honor to the students, because a person who is teaching should love his students, and he should realize that they are like his children. And we find that the Talmud says that it says in regards to students that a person who is teaching, when he studies himself, so it helps him. He knows, he learns, he becomes smarter from it. When he's with his friends, he also is learning from his friends. But from his students, he will learn the most. And it's just like a little twig which lights up the great fire on the big log. So too also the little student can sharpen for the teacher, until through his questions he will bring the greatest study and the greatest understanding. So, my friends, this is the laws of today in the Rambam. I hope you're all doing very well, and we'll see you tomorrow.